Hello and welcome. This is a continuation from the previous video on infrastructure as code presented by DHQ Tech. Now, if you're new here, please check out the previous video on infrastructure as code, and then you can follow up with this video. Now, a quick recap of the last video. So what we said was enterprise organizations deploy hundreds of applications into production every single day. And traditionally, the setup will be very tasking because it's done manually. And so automating this process is very crucial in error reduction, cost reduction, and also management. And this will help the organization stay competitive in the market. And IaC, that's infrastructure as code, revolutionized how companies design and build IT infrastructure by providing a reliable and robust way from the ground up. So you can basically set up infrastructure resources like virtual machines, load balancers, and other network parameters as a code. So that's just what we said last time. Now, all your configuration parameters are put in the form of a template called configuration file or config file. And on this file, all the instructions are clearly defined with regards to provisioning a server or an infrastructure on premises or in the cloud, just as you would for a recipe. And there are two main approaches to writing the script. These are the imperative and the declarative. The first approach we're looking at is the imperative approach. It's also called a procedural approach. So basically, this approach follows a strict, detailed definition of how to provision the infrastructure. So you could think of it like your GPS navigator that guides you every step of the way, I hope. So it tells you turn left, turn right, continue for 1 kilometer, at the roundabout, take the third exit, and so on. So in writing the script, you must follow a strict order as the provisioning needs to occur, from downloading the image all the way, all through till the end. And we'll see all of that in subsequent videos. Now, mind you, if you write a code which is not orderly and you use an imperative tool to execute, it will not go through. So it's very important to take into consideration what approach you're using to write the code and what tool you're using to execute the code. And a good example of imperative approach would be PowerScript. So this is an example of a bash script written using the imperative approach for IaC provisioning. So this is basically telling the tool how to provision the said resource or the said infrastructure. And you're basically the micromanager because you have to be very, very detailed in everything. So you can see we have the VM ID and then the VM name and the storage, the image URL and everything. You have to actually outline all the steps in order to successfully provision the infrastructure using this approach. Okay, the declarative or the functional approach is more intelligent. So you basically just describe what you want, and it's going to execute every step of the way. So your only concern is the outcome. So regardless of the script order is going to execute, all you have to do is describe the final state of the resource or the system you're provisioning. And the automation process is going to configure everything as described. And a good example of this would be the Terraform tool. And of course, we're going to look at that in subsequent videos. This is an example of a declarative script or a script using the declarative approach. So this has two main parts. We have the provider configuration, which basically has information of the, if you're using the cloud service provider, you have to mention it there. Or if you're using your home server, maybe you have a type 1 hypervisor. In this case, it will be Proxmox. The example we're going to use in subsequent video will be on Proxmox. And then the next part is the VM.tf. So it has information on the resource template, like the virtual machine template you're actually going to configure. I hope this explanation really helped. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, confusions, whatever. Thank you.